and 1. Sandra Moore, and I would like to welcome you to BCP Council's Licensing Subcommittee. And can I ask my colleagues here for nominations for chair, please?
Yes, can I nominate you, please? Yeah, and I'll second you.
Thank you very much. Can I go straight on to housekeeping? And can I ask our clerk to read out the housekeeping notice regarding how this meeting is going to be managed?
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, if applicable, up to the exclusion of public and press, is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, could everyone please follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the Chair. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. If joining remotely, please ensure that you unmute yourself and always turn on your video function before speaking. Please mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the Chair will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please use the raise your hand function at the top of the screen, or your hand if you're in the meeting room. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed exit route and make your way to the assembly point over Brady Road underneath the flyover. Finally, if joining remotely, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum, and can everyone ensure that mobile phones and other devices, including laptops, are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right, item 2 are apologies. Have we had any apologies for this meeting?
None received.
Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. I'm going to ask each of my subcommittee members if they have any declarations of interest. I haven't got any. Over to you.
Thank you. I have none either. Thank you. No, and I don't have any neither. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Item 4 is the protocol for public speaking at hearings, and the protocol for public speaking at meetings of the Licensing Subcommittee is included with the agenda sheet for noting. Thank you. So we go on to item 5, the review of Abracadabra, 3 High Street, Christchurch, BH23 1AB. And the licensing authority has received an application to review the premises license for the premises known as Abracadabra, 3 High Street, Christchurch, BH23 1AB, and the matter is brought before the subcommittee for determination. So now I'm going to ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. We'll start with me. I'm Councillor Sandra Moore, and I will be chairing, and I'm a member of the subcommittee.
I'm Councillor Lawrence Williams. I represent Littledown Lyford, and I'm a member of the Licensing Subcommittee and the main licensing board.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Brian Castle. I represent Muscliffe and Stroudon Park, and I'm in your subcommittee and on your licensing committee as well. Thank you.
We also have Councillor Chapman Law is a reserve member, but he's on Teams at the moment, and obviously he's not required to participate because we're all here. So attending in person, we have our licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair. So Tanya Jardine, licensing officer.
And our legal advisor.
Thank you, Chair. Joanne McNamara, legal advisor to the licensing subcommittee.
Thank you. And our clerk.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Cutler, and I'm the clerk to the licensing subcommittee today.
And our responsible authorities, Dorset Police, Sergeant Gosling.
Good morning, committee members. Sergeant Gosling, Dorset Police Alcohol Licensing Team.
Good morning, Louise Gosfield, Dorset Police Alcohol Licensing Team. I'm here in capacity as observer today.
Thank you. Attending remotely, we have Mrs. Clark. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. My name is June Clark from JMC Licensing. I'm the representative of the applicant today.
Thank you. And we have Mr. Mohammed. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. My name is Yunus Muhammad. I'm an Abracadabra owner.
Thank you for that. I think that's everybody. Yeah, Councillor Richardson hasn't.
Yes, she
Oh, yes, she is. She's on. I do beg your pardon. We have Councillor Richardson who has joined us on Teams, but she's observing for training purposes, which she won't be taking part in the meeting. Thank you. Right, so before I run through the procedure, can I check that everyone who's given notice of their intention to speak have been identified? Yeah, sorry, we have got another license. Could you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Yes,
about
good
that.
morning. Sarah Rogers, Senior Licensing Officer, BCP.
You sat down quietly and I missed it. Yes. Right. So is everybody has been identified? Yeah, everything's okay and nobody wishes to withdraw. So there's no comments. I'll carry on. Take that as correct. So now I'm going to explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. So the licensing officer will present the report, and then we go to questions of the licensing officer by all parties. Again, members of the subcommittee to go first, and then the applicant, which in this case is Dorset Police, will make your application, and questions of the applicant by all parties. Again, members of the subcommittee to go first. And then I'm going to invite those representing the premises to respond to the application, and question of the premises representatives, again, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last, that will be the premises people, to go first. The hearing will then conclude and the subcommittee will deliberate in private with our legal advisor and the clerk present. And notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision would include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. So I'm going to ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. So unless anybody indicates otherwise, I'll take that as confirmed. Everything okay? Right. So finally, can I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they've already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. So now I'm going to ask the licensing officer to present the report. Thank you.
And it's just to remind all parties present that if at any point we're discussing any matters that are confidential, if you can just let me know beforehand, I will make sure that we put past the exclusion of public and press, and that the live stream is temporarily suspended. That's just to make sure that nothing is broadcast unnecessarily. Okay, so just give us a heads up for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So application has been made by Dorset Police for review of the premises licence under section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003 on the grounds that they believe the premises at Abracadabra 3 High Street in Christchurch are not upholding the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm licensing objectives. Following various reports of concern received by Dorset Police with regards to the way the premises were being operated, Dorset Police made several visits with other responsible authorities and noted that breaches of the premises licence conditions. Dorset Police were also concerned with the way the operators engage with youths, especially young women, that they are suspected of buying stolen goods, and that the premises has been responsible for the storage and sale of illegal vaping products, amongst other concerns that members will have had sight of in the supplementary information. As part of the multi-agency visits that were carried out, Trading Standards seized illegal vapes, and also Wiltshire Fire and Rescue have issued a prohibition notice, so not to allow sleeping within the storeroom manager's office as they deem that unsafe. Dorset Police have sought this review following the licence holder's failure to comply with the licence conditions and not appearing to want to further engage with Dorset Police. Dorset Police no longer have confidence in the designated premises supervisor, who is also the premises licence holder. Members will note that during the consultation period, the licensing office received correspondence from customers providing support for the premises and praising the way they operate. No other representations were received from other persons or responsible authorities. Members are reminded that any powers exercised by them must be necessary and appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and directed at the causes of the concern, which the application identifies once these have been established following the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Questions of the licensing officer?
I have none at the moment, thank you.
Dorset Police?
Yeah, I have none at the moment either.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd spoken. Have you any questions?
No questions for the licensing authority, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Clark, have you any questions?
No questions, Chair, thank you.
Mr. Mohammed?
No question, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So we've no questions there. So we go on to Dorset Police, the applicant, to make your application, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll just move that back. I'm conscious it's quite loud. I'll try and stay as concise as possible because I'm aware that you've had a great deal of supplementary evidence and information provided in the past week or so. Just to remind you, it's always our intention as a team to support licensees to meet the licensing objectives and to meet the conditions of their license. With this particular premises, we've engaged over a period of time and we've worked closely with our partners in a variety of different authorities to try and achieve a standard that we expect of all licensees. Unfortunately, we've experienced issues throughout, and despite warning letters and conversations and meetings with people who are present at the business, unfortunately, the improvement has been very little. At times, it's been very difficult to reach Mr. Mohammed to achieve any sort of progress. And I would summarise our concerns essentially to be as follows. We've got a concern regarding youth-related antisocial behaviour, which has been highlighted by our CSAS colleague. There has been historical issues with vapes, but you'll be pleased to know that following an intervention from trading standards, that seems to have been resolved. There are a couple of other sensitive issues that have been highlighted that should you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but outside of the public hearing. But most importantly, I think we've experienced a repeated breach of conditions, and that's been quite commonplace during all of our visits. So, for example, issues with CCTV logs, staff training, the refusals register, and CCTV training as well, and availability, which is really important when we're trying to refute any concerns that are raised. Certainly, if we get any intelligence or information, it's really useful to be able to refute that. And unfortunately, we've not been able to. More recently, concerns have been raised by our partners in immigration. And as has been alluded to by the licensing authority, a prohibition notice was served by Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue. The standards that we expect are high. However, the vast majority of businesses throughout the BCP area do comply with those standards. We continue to engage with the business, hence why we've had visits since the time that the review has been submitted. However, just to update you, the relationship has become increasingly difficult, which is quite unusual. And unfortunately, that has all but halted any progress in any improvement. No mediation has taken place in respect of this application, as contact has not been received by the applicant or their not the applicant, the respondent or their representative. And Dorset Police are happy to answer any questions that you might have that can clarify further any of the information that we've provided. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll go on to the questions of the applicant then. Members, questions, please.
I have a question, but I suspect it falls below the line. So I don't know if you want to take it now at this point or wait till the other questions and then go for that.
If I can ask, sorry, if I can ask you then, Chair, to please read
got it.
out the, oh, you done
Yeah.
it. And then I can
I'm
go
going to have to read this paragraph if we're going to go into confidential. Okay, so that under section 14, bracket 2 of the Licensing Act 2003, bracket hearings, regulations 2005, section 100, bracket A, bracket 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 2 in part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information.
We are now back in public session.
Thank you very much. And I'm now going to give all parties an opportunity to briefly sum up with the party who spoke last as the premises to go first. Mrs. Clark, your opportunity to sum up.
Yeah, sure. We've heard lots and lots of information here. Some of it which I'm sorry I can't agree with, especially the breaches of 14 licensing conditions. I've just checked them and there's actually only 7 that was in breach at that time. So I'll not go over that because I could, but there was actually only 7. But even 7 is wrong, even 1 is wrong. It shows merit on the staff, the fact that they've actually passed 2 test purchases, you know, even though that the training has been scrutinised by the officer, but they've still passed 2 test purchases by trading standards and the police. And yes, the police and the officers do have the right of entry if they suspect to investigate licensable activities, but for a licensing inspection is slightly different. They should give 24 hours notice, and the reason why the 24 hours notice is because so the DPS or the personal license premises license holder can be there to discuss matters with the officers. Officers should not, in my opinion, should not be going in talking to part-time staff, interrogating them. I think that's completely wrong, and I think that's where a lot of these problems are. He's seen the error of his ways. He's not. He's quite sorry about what he's done. He's seen the error of his ways. He's willing to learn, and his partner is willing. If you consider removing him as the DPS instead of a revocation, his partner is willing to take over the role of the DPS once she is trained up and she gets her personal license herself. She's quite willing to do that. And really that's it. I mean, there's lots of accusations and allegations in these statements, but you know, at the end of the day, nothing's been brought to the table except one video from years ago. Things are not right, but he's had no assistance from the police or anybody. They've just gone in there and just forced the way through the doors, and they've not assisted him. They said there's training available, but nobody's been to tell him about it. So, you know, I'm just completely lost with all this because it's just so. It seems as if it's heavy-sided. So anyway, I'll end the meeting and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Sergeant Gosling, would you like to sum up?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'll try and keep it brief. So as you will see from the papers that we've produced, and I am really pleased that we've evolved the way in which we do things so that it's audited, so that everything that we identify is written. Previously, we used to just pass advice and then come away. I'm so glad that we've developed that in the way that we have, where we formally write to license holders to let them know what's wrong and to invite them to make changes. We also copy in the licensing authority in that information just to ensure that everybody's aware that there is ongoing work to try and improve things. You will see though that despite a number of visits, unfortunately, we've experienced the same, I think, experience that Mrs. Clark did perhaps more earlier with the license holder, in that he just doesn't seem to have listened to us. Much of this engagement has resulted as a result of concerns, and Mrs. Clark is absolutely right. It wouldn't be appropriate to arrange appointments at ridiculous times of the day, but where we are investigating certain reports, we will go along with no notice, and that's what the Act empowers us to do. And they're not simply inspections, and I don't want you thinking that they are simply inspections. They are on the back of concerns being raised to us. We are a very small team. We target our resources very efficiently. We have to. We've got thousands of premises to look after throughout Dorset, but they are in response to concerns. We remain concerned. Hopefully you've picked up that from today's questions. I was hoping that from the questions I'd asked today that we would get a bit more clarity, perhaps even some reassurance, but unfortunately that's not been forthcoming for us. We have considered the alternatives to revocation as possible outcomes to this review, but unfortunately when we do go through each of them, as you will have seen in the pack, the most serious issues, some of which I won't talk about now, but you are aware of, they do heighten our concerns to the point that unfortunately we can only support the one outcome, which would be the revocation. We ask you please to consider the evidence that we've provided today, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to make some notes with regards to the questions that have been asked, and I'd ask you to take all of that into consideration in your determination. One final note from me is that I would like to thank our partners in the local authority. So that includes the Community Safety Accreditation Scheme officers who do a great job in Christchurch Town Centre, the Licensing Authority for their support, and Trading Standards as well in conducting the visits, and then additionally Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue and Immigration Service, who have come forward and provided additional information which further highlight and amplify our concerns. Thank you very much for your time this morning and this afternoon.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. So I think everybody's had an opportunity to sum up, and I will now conclude the hearing. And at the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with our legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. All parties can now leave, and the decision will be conveyed to you in writing, as we explained earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Are you happy to adjourn the meeting so I can adjourn on the screen? Thank you.
Thank you. So we go on to item 6, which is Highcliffe Sports and Social Club, 387 Livington Road, Christchurch. So the licensing authority has received an application to review the club premises certificate for the premises known as Highcliffe Sports and Social Club, 387 Livington Road, Christchurch. This application was adjourned from the 17th of January 2024 and is now brought before the subcommittee for determination. So now I'm going to ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. Starting with me, I'm Councillor Sandra Moore and I'm chairing this subcommittee.
I'm Councillor Lawrence Williams and I'm the member for Littledown Kniford and a member of the committee.
Right.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Brian Castle. I'm from Muscliffe and Stroughton Park, and I'm a councillor on this subcommittee. Thanks.
I also have Councillor Chapman Law, who's a reserve member. He's not at the meeting, he's online, but he's not required to participate because obviously we're all here, but he is observing for training purposes, but he won't take part in the hearing or any deliberations. And also Councillor Judy Richardson is also observing, again, for training purposes and won't be taking part in the hearing or in deliberations. So we also have our licensing officer, if you could introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Sarah Rogers, Senior Licensing Officer.
Thank you. And our legal advisor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Joanne McNamara and I'm legal advisor to the subcommittee today.
We also have another licensing officer.
Hello, Tanya Jardine. I'm just observing. Thank you.
Thank you. And our clerk.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Cutler and I'm clerk to the licensing subcommittee today.
Thank you. And we also have Sergeant Gosling.
Yes, Sergeant Gosling. I'll be taking more of a back seat on this particular matter.
Thank you. Louise.
Good afternoon, Louise Busfield, Dorset Police Alcohol Licensing Team.
Thank you. And then we have Mr. Dunn.
Yes, good afternoon. Bill on from Silver Fox Licensing Consultants, and I'm representing my clients from Highcliffe, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Jenny Share. I'm the club secretary at Highcliffe Sports and Social Club.
Good afternoon, I'm Mary White. I'm the bar manager at Highcliffe Sports and Social Club.
Thank you for that. So before I run through the procedure, can I check that all persons who've given notice of their intention to speak have been identified? Everyone, yeah? And any person who wishes to withdraw representation or wishes not to speak has also been identified. There's no comments, I'll take that as correct. Everyone's okay? Yeah, good. So now I'm going to explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing, which is as follows. So the licensing officer presents the report, and there'll be questions of the licensing officer by all parties but members of the subcommittee to go first. And then the applicant, which is Dorset Police, will make their application, and then questions of the applicant by all parties, again, members of the subcommittee to go first. And then I'm going to invite those representing the premises to respond to the applicant. And then there's questions of the premises representatives, again, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last, which will be the premises, to go first. The hearing will then conclude, and the subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and the clerk present. A notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. So I'm now going to ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. Everyone okay? Okay, so I'll take that.
Chair, just one point of order. I do understand that you viewed CCTV footage in private, and we would request that any mention of that would be held in private as well. It's not our intention to discuss it in too much detail.
Okay, so if we have to discuss anything, then we will have to, switch it all off and go into confidential. Is that all right? And there's a procedure for that. You know that. Thank you. So finally, can I please remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they've already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. And all questions are to be asked through the chair, and there'll be no cross-examination of parties. So now I'm going to ask the licensing officer to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Dorset Police have applied to review the club premises certificate at Highcliffe Sports and Social Club under section 51 of the Licensing Act. They believe they are not upholding the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety licensing objectives. Dorset Police believe that the premises are not adhering to the requirements of the Licensing Act and no longer have confidence that the premises are being operated as a members club and to the expected standards. The differences of the legal requirements under a club premises certificate and a premises license are set out in detail in my report. The most significant difference is that a club premises is operated for its members and their bona fide guests and not for members of the public. No representations were received in support of the review. However, 32 letters of support were sent into the licensing authority from either current members of the club or members of the public. Mediation has taken place between the police and the club, and a number of conditions have been offered. It will be for members to decide if this is the preferred option for the promotion of those licensing objectives. It may be that one of the other options available is more appropriate and proportionate in this case, once the causes of concern which the application identifies have been established following this hearing. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that. So questions of the licensing officer, members? Any questions?
Nothing at present, thank you.
Okay. You got any questions? No. Mr. Dunn, have you got any questions? The licensing
No
officer?
questions.
Thank you. Right, so then we go on to the applicant, Dorset Police, to make your application, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. As you will be aware, it is the intention of our team to support licensees to meet the licensing conditions and to promote the 4 licensing objectives. And in this case, attempting to support the operators with complying with the requirements of the club premises certificate whilst promoting the licensing objectives, specifically the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety, in order to ensure that this licensed premises is an asset within the community and it's an enjoyable and safe place for people in the local community to enjoy. It is therefore of significant concern that the incident that you have already viewed demonstrates a lack of a duty of care from the premises, from the staff on the premise towards the customers, and it does undermine the role that this premises wants to play within the local community. It is also, it must be said, that it is also disappointing that the operators declined to support the police with any investigation. We do work very closely with officers when there are criminal incidences taking place, and we would expect a licensed premises to support any investigation, which basically is significant in bringing offenders to justice. So without this support and engagement, it did lead to additional concerns. And these concerns were sort of amplified when the inability or reluctance to operate to other standards that we would expect of a licensed premises in Dorset, basic compliance with the conditions of the club premises certificate seemed to be being disregarded by consistently opening and advertising events to non-members. And this is despite verbal and written advice following visits and conversations and emails about the responsibilities that they must act within the constraints of your club premises certificate. And I know there was a lot of communication between the licensing authority and the club in reminding them of these obligations. So during the time, and we're speaking really the last 12 months from when that incident unfolded back in December 22, I have endeavoured to work with the operators to achieve improvement. But it hasn't been possible due to either a lack of engagement or a lack of a desire to support the promotion of the licensing objectives. And similarly, we discussed the being able to comply with the limitations or restrictions of the club premises certificate. And we did engage in discourse about potentially applying for a premises license, which would then offer premises the opportunity to open to the wider community rather than just remaining a local community asset. However, despite these discussions, I didn't have any feedback or any follow-up, and the operators I have found have been reluctant to engage with advice and recommendations that we've been offering, and it's therefore the reason that we are now before the subcommittee today. It's only really been since the application for the review was served that we've now engaged with some mediation with Mr. Don on behalf of the club in order to try and drive up standards, let's say, and ensure compliance. So as you've seen in our submission, you've got details of our concerns dating back 12 months. So I won't elaborate further on those, but obviously I'm open to questions should the panel and the respondents so wish.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Right, members of the subcommittee, have you got any questions?
I think I do. Okay. Actually, my question's probably for that side of the room. Can you explain?
Yeah, we're just doing Dorset Police.
In which case, I'll hold my question for the appropriate time.
Okay.
I will hold my question for the appropriate time.
It wasn't a question for you.
Question.
No, it's getting a bit keen.
I was.
Yeah, I have no questions at present.
Okay. Tanya, sorry, if you got any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
You referred to having some discussions with the premises since the review application was put in. On the documents provided by the premises, page 88 to 89 of the papers, the premises are putting forward some proposed conditions if the subcommittee were so minded to modify the conditions, and I just wondered what the police's view is in relation to those proposed conditions in their papers.
So again, we have, it's only since the application was served that there has been a relationship we managed to establish with the premises, which is positive moving forwards. And yes, we have engaged in mediation, and several additional conditions were proposed, and we've gone back and we've worked on a few conditions to make the premises license, or sorry, to make the club premises certificate more appropriate and relevant to the premises. So yes, they're all conditions which we have considered, and we will go forward to discuss further.
Sorry, I'll just add as well that on page 41 of the pack, with regards to our supplementary submission, page 41 starts to discuss those conditions that were put forward by Mr. Don, and further add some areas we think that might also benefit from conditions to be attached also.
Thank you for that. Mr. Dunn, you've got some questions for
yes, Ms. Busfield, I understand that you felt generally that in relation to the incident that the committee have had the benefit of seeing CCTV footage, that the premises weren't supportive of the investigation. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Were you provided with copies of the CCTV of the incident?
Yes.
Were the individuals concerned identified by the management of the venue?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes. On the CCTV footage that you would have had the opportunity to look at, the individuals that were involved in the incident, were they identified as named individuals by the management of Highcliffe?
I don't know. I can't comment on that.
Were there any arrests following the investigation?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, Chair, if I may just come back. I understand you wanted a statement from the manager, Mary White, in respect of this. And you claim that she declined to give a statement. Can you expand on that a little?
I'm not here to discuss the criminal investigation. I'm referring to the concerns we witnessed during that incident of the lack of control and the matter of public safety and how the incident was largely dealt with. The investigating officer is the one who had been asking the premises for statements, naming individuals potentially.
Well, you say that, but you've put this in your application for the review. You're saying that the premises management team have not engaged in supporting with the police investigation. And yet I'm assured by my clients that in fact CCTV footage was provided. Everyone's seen that. And those individuals were named by the management team. So surely that's indication that the investigation is being supported by the management team.
Can you just bear with me for a minute?
Okay, if I might, I'm just conscious of the fact that we are streaming live. I'll try and answer that. The information that we have from the officer in charge of the investigation. So I think that the point that Louise there was making is that we look into matters relating to licensing. We provide information that is available to us from the officers that do conduct the investigations. The information that we have is that there was a reluctance on the part of the manager to support the investigation on the basis that they were concerned about their relationship with those involved. That's the information that we have.
if can I just interrupt, so that they are sort of around the margins of the exempt information here, so we might have to go into the confidential session. It's
Chair, that probably would be advisable.
Is everybody okay if we do go into the exempt session? Okay, so I've got to I've got to read things out. Is that all right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That under section 14, bracket 2 of the Licensing Act 2003, bracket hearings, regulations 2005 and section 100, bracket A, bracket 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 2 in part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information. Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Dunn, you're representing the premises. Would you like to respond to the applicant?
Sorry, Chair.
Would you like to respond to the applicant? Make your representation.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have provided the committee with a skeleton argument, and I don't propose to go over that in too much detail. But the key points that I would point out is that generally we feel that the application for review was somewhat premature. The police have expressed a situation of no confidence in the management of the premises, and we feel that is grossly unfair. Yes, there was a very nasty incident back in December 22, and it was a serious offence, but nonetheless, it could have been handled differently. There was an injured person. When they came to, they decided that they would not want to press charges, and the manager could have made the decision that actually, as a manager of a licensed premises, they should have informed the police there and then. But subsequent to that, once the injured individual went home, he reviewed his decision and decided to contact the police, and an investigation was conducted. My client did provide CCTV footage. She did identify those individuals to the investigating officer, but yes, she was reluctant to make a formal statement, which she now, on reflection, wished that she had, because while she didn't witness the actual evidence, she could have highlighted the build-up of that particular scenario and the actions that they took as a venue afterwards. It was an isolated incident. It was random. Even if they had had security on, there's a fair chance that that incident may still have occurred. Yes, the aggressors may have been apprehended at slightly earlier, but nonetheless, there was an ongoing investigation and arrests have been made. I do not know if the victim attended hospital or so on. But they did reflect on the incident and what could they have done differently. Some 8 months later, there was another incident which they managed with members and quell the disturbance. They did contact the police and they did provide CCTV footage. There were no victims and no arrests took place. But that demonstrates that actually they did reflect and learn from the original incident. But if you look over the past 3 or 4 years as an operation, actually the police have not been called to disturbances other than the 2 that I mentioned, and a further incident in the report in relation to an intoxicated person that was refused service. Now, as a licensing subcommittee, one of the questions will be, well, okay, we can assure you that we have put an awful lot of initiatives in place, but why does a review take that? Why does it have to come to review for things to happen? But very often that is the case. You will be aware that a club premises certificate does not, as indeed late night refreshment outlets, do not require a DPS, a designated premises supervisor. My view as a consultant is that's a weakness in the system, because that means that there has to be no qualified person. To become a DPS, you have to have a nationally accredited qualification. That's as determined by the DCMS course curriculum, and that is the award in personal license holders. That is the only accredited qualification in the whole of the licensing field that's available, and that includes to practitioners as well. I am delighted to confirm that Mary sitting to my left, far left, has actually just passed her APLH exam. But there's been a whole host of other training events. Many of the members of the committee have taken first aid course, fire warden course, health and safety, and the APLH. Mary has already passed it, and it's intended that Jenny in the next 2 weeks will take the course as well. So all of the policies and procedures have been reviewed and brought up to date, if you will, in terms of the availability of spiked drink kits. So if a drink is alleged to be spiked, there's kits available. They're familiar with the Ask for Angela campaign, which is a national campaign for care of vulnerable persons. They have a seizure policy now, should they find drugs or weapons on the property. They have, I was going to say TVP, but Dorset Police seizure bags and procedures there. And they have recently engaged with the local pub watch scheme. So an awful lot of work has gone on. In terms of the front door lock, which is an item in the review papers, that was repaired within a week. So only members can get into the club through the front door. We do accept that for many months the door was not working properly. Then we come to the limitations of operating a members club. And it is different. You're not open to the general public. You can't be open to the general public unless you're operating under the benefit of a temporary event notice. However, under the club rules, if guests can be signed in, and at the moment under the club rules, there's no limitations into the number of guests that can enter into the pub. So if a member books in a 30th a 30th birthday party, then they can sign in 10, 12 guests as members on behalf of the membership. So they've tightened that up. And whilst a lot of the historic promotional material that's also in the supplementary pack invites non-members, well, that's absolutely possible. So, for example, New Year's Eve, they had an annual New Year's Eve ball. It was a sit-down dinner. There was one prize for members and another prize for non-members. But those non-members would have had to be signed in as guests. There is also mention that one of the officers from the Highcliffe Social Club said that, well, how are we going to grow business if we don't invite non-members? Well, of course, that's the purpose of the club is to attract new members. And once they are there, they're signed up. They have to wait 48 hours before they can engage as a member. They pay a membership. And at the moment, I can tell you that they have the benefit of over 700 members. And for a small community, that's actually quite significant. So in summary, the police feel there's the club was operating outside of the certificate. We don't think so. There has been 3 events last year that were open to the public that were covered by a temporary event notice. And they have a calendar of events in this year, 24, which they're already planning to apply for temporary event notices. So there'll be no tickets on the door. It will be members or their guests. But the ideal scenario is that they sign them up as guests because there's membership there. And in terms of operation procedures, they've tightened up, like so many of the premises will. It might have needed a review process to get going, but they have established absolutely everything. We have put forward a suggestion that the committee might consider to impose conditions on the licence. When the certificate was granted back in 2005 under the Licensing Act, the conditions, the advice from central government was to apply a light touch, and the current conditions are in some cases ambiguous and unenforceable. So we have put together a series of conditions that probably reflect national standards. And my clients are happy with that because it's more like a checklist of making sure that they are fully compliant. The police have kindly offered some additional conditions or amendments, which I'm just going to come to, and we don't particularly agree with all of them. They suggest that a member of staff for each room is being used for licensable activities. We're happy with that. That's if an area is open, it should be supervised. The maintenance of a secure and audible signing method for members and bona fide guests, that's already in place, so we would be happy with that put on. CCTV coverage for all areas that are licensed within the outline of the plan. That's already in place. I think there's just a rear exit that's outside of the licensable areas that would benefit from a camera. The CCTV actually recalls for 32 days currently, and it is being reviewed on a weekly basis. Hard drives tend to slip a little bit on the date and timestamp to make sure that that's been reviewed on a weekly basis and signed off. And then the one that we don't particularly agree with is that there should be a first aider, a first aid qualified person, albeit there are five, possibly six persons that are qualified first aiders. But the Health and Safety Act says that there should be a nominated first aider. And that person's responsibility is A, to maintain the first aid kit, and secondly, to phone the ambulance services required. You're getting into very dodgy ground where a person who's only part qualified and the basic first aid course is not that great. If you're asking them to administer first aid, they may be in breach of their insurance conditions and so on. So we would say that we reject that, but we're happy to have a first aider nominated. But there again, the section 182 of the guidance of the Licensing Act will say that it shouldn't repeat other legislation. So one has to question whether that should be as a condition at all. And then in respect of risk assessments, we do endorse that. And particularly for the requirement for SIA door supervisors, and as an example, they've already put that in place for two ways. First of all, one of the committee members is an SIA registered door person, and they have been appointed with the role of security manager to make sure CCTV footage, statements and so on are fully compliant. And there were door supervisors on duty at the event on New Year's Eve. So my clients are moving forward. So, Chair, we would ask, we do really strongly feel that the police were a little bit hasty in this review. It is notable that the Environmental Protection Officer, which would normally be responsible for noise, has not put in a representation, and neither has licensing. We have 32 letters of support. Of course, the committee will give weight to as much weight as they feel fit for that. We would recommend, as in the skeleton argument, that actually, given the progress that my clients have made, it would be appropriate and proportionate to impose those conditions in the skeleton argument and amended by the police, as we've just discussed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just go on now to questions. Members, have you got any questions, Mr. Dunn?
I don't think I do, thank you.
Yeah, just probably a couple of questions here. When you have, do you have 18-year-old birthday parties in the club?
Historically, they have, but since the review, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's fine. And what was it? Obviously, when the people are signed in, do they give their name and address, or they just sign in under a member?
They give their name and address.
Okay.
Postcode, everything.
Yeah. I think there's something else, but I did write it down.
Okay, right. Well, can I ask, from the reports, it seems that some of there are members that have caused some of the issues, and that we've been told about. Can you tell me whether or not they're still members?
Yes, there was a member of the club that came in intoxicated. It's alleged that it was his birthday. Actually, he'd found out whether he was having cancer. So there was it was a bit shocking. So that was the cause of his intoxication. He is an officer of the club, still is. He apologised profusely to all the members of staff. No further action was taken.
Right, thank you for that. Oh, you sort of it now, yes.
Yeah, when your members have played up or whatever, do you have like a membership book when they come up before the committee? And
Sorry,
if there's-
councillor, I didn't hear the first bit of the sentence.
when the members played up, when the members, you know, what do you call it? I don't know. Yeah, a registered member. When he's played up, when they've upset other members up before the committee, are they put into a membership book they keep an eye on, or when they're suspended, are they kept in a book or something?
There are regular committee meetings, and those issues are then discussed and action taken from there.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And outside parties, when you have a party booked in from an outsider, not under a TENS license, but say it's like you said, someone's 30th birthday party. There's a list of the guests that are coming in. Is there addresses for the guests? Not to be seen by members, obviously, but when they come on the door, they
Yes,
just say, "My name's Jack Smith," and that's it.
Well, people coming in from outside can't book a party unless they become a member. So a member has to book the event, and then his guests are signed in.
Okay, and is that member also accountable for that? So if, say, a fight breaks out in that party or problems break out in that party, does that member walk before the committee?
Yes, I mean, I think it's twofold. Ultimately, the running of a venue isn't down to an individual member. It's actually down to the officers of the club to make sure that the place is managed in an orderly fashion. But nonetheless, if a member's guest causes a problem, then the member will be taken to task.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so questions, Dorset Police?
Just a couple of questions. You mentioned that the action taken by Dorset Police was premature. However, would you agree that the vast majority, if not all of the improvements, certainly that we've experienced, has actually occurred since the review was submitted?
I suspect that there's been a breakdown of relationships between the officers visiting the premises and my clients that hasn't led to a good working relationship. But yes, I would concede that the review has prompted these improvements, but nonetheless, had the police actually formally introduce a performance review, as indeed many other police authorities do, it would have saved the necessity for the cost and expense of a whole review proceedings.
Thank you. And just one more from myself. With regards to, again, we do have a kind of tale of two halves here, because there were a great deal of, and one of the things that led to this review was the persistence of events being advertised to non-members. Can you, and that has now since stopped happening, because it was quite clear from the advertisements that have been provided in the supplementary that it was as open to non-members as it was to members, which can cause confusion. Can you perhaps clarify for the members, perhaps, how that was managed? And if we'll fully accept if that wasn't managed as effectively as it is now, then that's great, and we've learned, and it's all about trying to achieve improvement. But our concern was that those non-members were able to come in. There was a broken sort of auditing device entry system. But can you confirm that, or clarify how that was managed with guests being signed in or non-members being signed in routinely off the street?
Yes, I mean, I think you're particularly alluding to one of the posters in relation to a wrestling event, boxing wrestling event, which you've seen the posters for. It did say non-members, which actually is an invitation to treat. You can come along, and they would be signed in on the back of a members, because it was a members promotion. what it should have said was members' guess and their guess on the promotions poster. I think the intention for my clients was actually to apply for a late 10, but then decided on advice that they would actually withdraw a whole event. Any future events, I can assure you, will be designed to clarify that it is members and their guests. However, if you are, it is directed to the website, and for the last 3 months, it's absolutely clear on the website that if you want to become a member, then you must do so, and it's at least 48 hours before you can take effect.
Thank you very much, and it's really good that that progress has been made, and we're absolutely delighted to see that. I forgot what my last one was now. Oh yes, I do. Could you perhaps provide some clarity or understanding to the committee as to why a premises license, which would provide that opportunity for the club to expand that much further and be far more open, could we understand why there is a reluctance for the club to operate under a premises license?
Yes, club premises certificates are really quite unique in the way that they operate. I can't think that you've got too many in the areas, indeed, across the country. There used to be a prevalence, particularly of British Legion clubs throughout. There are benefits to being a private members club. Particularly so because it is indeed a members club there for the benefit of the members, and it's more of a community hub and more of a community spirit than it would be just an open public place. That's not the intention of the committee. That's not what they want. They do recognise that if they want to put on an external event, that one would attract potentially new members, then a temporary event notice is required. All of us in the room will be aware that the temporary event notices this year has resorted back to the 15 events and 21 days because the easements under the COVID regulations has now stopped. So there's less 10s available, but I have reviewed the calendar events with my client, and they feel that the number of temporary event notices that are available to them is more than sufficient for the planned activities.
So anybody else like to? Oh, sorry, you want to ask?
Yes, just another couple of questions on the basis of the access system that you say was rectified shortly after our visit of, I think, a couple of years ago. Can you just clarify when the access was secured and how it works? Thank you.
Immediately after we noticed that it was becoming an issue, I have been trying since I became secretary in September 2020. I've been trying to get the door fixed. Now, it was a new door entry system that was fitted, which apparently did not work from the initial installation. And then there was the COVID lockdown. And then I came in as secretary in September 20 and tried to chase up why this system wasn't working. The company were up north somewhere and were reluctant to come and fix it, said it could be done our end. Where's the on-off button? They said they couldn't see a problem as it was letting some members in and some not. So we just gave up at one point and just decided to turn it off. And obviously when people come in, we know them. It's a very friendly, we know who our members are. And obviously the guests were signing in, and we just felt we gave up with them. But it came to the point when this notice was served, I got on the phone and I was a bit harsher than I usually am. And I insisted that they came to fix it. And that still took me until December to get them. It still took me to, I think, the week before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, for them to come, because their technicians are all over the place and it's not something they could do. Then they said it'd have to be the end of January, and I insisted, no, it needs to be done now, before Christmas and New Year. And I was there in the evening when they arrived, and I stayed with them, and it turned out they'd fitted it upside down initially, and their software hadn't been updated. So some cards it was reading, but they hadn't loaded enough on their system to read the other cards that were through. So I sat with them through the whole process, and then they tried to charge me sort of £500 for the privilege, but I did get it fixed. But it was but it's something that's working really well now. The members do know that they need to swipe to come in and everything, and it's working a dream, and it's lovely to have it back. So
Can you just confirm that people can't come in unless they swipe in?
sorry, oh yeah, I confirm they can't. So when they come into the porch area, it says swipe card to come in, and if they don't have their card and they're fumbling around, there's a button there where they buzz, and obviously our bar staff can see. They can speak through the microphone, ask, you know, if it's a delivery man, whatever, and they come straight to the front bar with, you know, with a parcel or whatever. But they do need to come in, so nobody off the street can walk in unattended.
Thank you, that's certainly reassuring. Just another couple of questions. I noticed that in Mary White's submission, or I beg your pardon, it might have been yourself, Mr. Dunn, that you say that members dealt with the incident. Certainly the first incident we were alluding to in December, and then the second incident, which was the christening, that members and people associated with those groups assisted and diffused those incidents. Are you and your staff aware that you need sufficient qualified and trained staff, that members should not get involved in in crime and disorder and trying to separate parties?
Well, that's not entirely true, is it? Because it's only if you're in the role of a door supervisor, you're actually in the role, then you do have to be qualified and registered with the SIA. There is nothing stopping an individual as a bystander to intervene.
Okay, so is that the approach then of the club is to rely on that then of bystanders to intervene in cases where?
Sorry, no, as we've stated earlier, those events now are risk assessed. We have a SIA member, registered door supervisor, who's part of the committee, and where events would be risk assessed and a door supervisor is required, or door supervisors is required, then those SIA doormen are placed on duty, as indeed as was New Year's Eve. So,
okay, can you confirm then who's going to hold whose direction they're going to operate on? So with the SIA, and I don't want to go too far down this, with regards to operating as an accredited SIA door supervisor, they have to operate within certain guidelines and certain rules around that. They have to be managed by somebody. So who is that all? Has that all been rectified? I don't believe it's necessarily for the benefit of the members today, but it can't be that they simply stick a badge on and carry on. They have to operate under the management of somebody who's got a non-frontline license.
Yes. Now, Mary is the manager, so obviously she gives direction. Now, the SIA door supervisors, when employed, are outsourced to a third party. So they are responsible for checking the badges and so on. But nonetheless, because once we've contracted those door supervisors to work at the social club, they are vicarious employees. So there's a case of due diligence to make sure that their badges are correct by going on the SIA website, and we've got a system in place now to check that the badges are validated. And then, of course, whilst the SIA door supervisors undertake a 5-day course now, including physical intervention, it is expected that in this case, the club premises certificate holders to give some direction to those SIA in how things are being worked.
Thank you very much. That answers our questions. Is that all your questions?
Yes, Chair, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Right, has anybody else got any questions?
If I may, I'd just like to clarify over the membership situation. Is there a membership fee?
Yes.
How much is that?
It's just increased to £25.
It was 20, it's now 25.
And then there's an annual. That's it
Yes.
forever. Okay.
Each year.
Oh, so it's payable annually. And what's the process then? Do you have to, a member have to be introduced? Do you have to be seconded by another member? Do you meet the committee for approval, or or you just pay your £25? What happens?
It's straightforward process. The members produce their ID, secondary forms of address. They're signed up as membership, pay the fee, and then they have to wait 48 hours before they can become a member.
Okay.
All of the membership goes live.
And you say you've got 700 live members now,
Yes.
approximately. So are you able to give a percentage or a number of those members who or not have become on the day members, if you like? So they've paid on the day, attended the premises, waited their 48 hours and got the thing, but have not continued with their membership. So do you have figures for instant member, the on the day membership for a particular event, as opposed to a member who's been a member for many years who continues to pay their?
I don't think those stats are held. Every year they have an annual renewal. That's actually taking place more or less as we speak. And it's hoped that the retention from those a fair percentage will be retained as members. So the answer is probably no, those records aren't kept. Just one. I'm told that there are reports that can be accessed, but I don't think currently they've been analysed. But we're more than happy to forward that onto licensing under separate cover.
So those annual fees, obviously they're not the anniversary doesn't end on the same day for every member, does it? So it's continuous.
Yes, it does occur every year. It's the all fees have to be paid by the 31st of January. So if you
No, so regardless.
Yes, so if you join part way through the year, you still have to pay the full membership fee. So you won't, similar to many gym memberships and so on. If you want to be a member, that's the fee. That might only be 12 months if you join on the 1st of February, but only 6 months if you join in July.
So using the New Year's Eve event as an example, if you joined on the 1st of January and you paid £25, you'd then have to pay another £25 on the 31st of January. Am I not? If everybody's
yes, you're correct. But then that becomes a decision whether it's worthwhile buying the membership at that time if you've only got a month to go. For those of you in the room for membership of the Institute of Licensing, follow exactly the same pattern and you'll be familiar with that.
Okay, any questions? Right. So now I'm going to give all parties an opportunity to sum up. The party who spoke last, which was yourself, to go first. I expect you'll want to be brief because you've probably covered most of
Yes, Chair, I will be brief. I've got nothing in addition to say than what I've already said, with one exception, just relating to the incident back in December 22. My client, Mary, had just had a baby only a few weeks before. And that does affect how vulnerable you feel in what was an unprecedented incident. And nobody at Highcliffe is underestimating how serious an incident it was.
That's all you want.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Right, Dorset Police.
Thank you, and I'll keep it brief as well. So we've detailed the opinions of Dorset Police in the options available to the subcommittee in this instance. And just to summarise, we can support the introduction of the additional conditions as discussed, potentially pending further discussion with the operators so that we fully understand the working relationship that we really do need to establish. So as long as we've got the confidence going forward that the operators will meet and promote the licensing objectives, And I would also ask, and perhaps this could be documented, that they will fully engage with the responsible authorities in any visits, support or discussions that we may need to have in respect of your premises. Thank you.
Well, I think on behalf, we could accept that, and I can share with the committee that my services have been retained on an ongoing basis, so they have a pool of experience at the end of the phone.
Thank you for that. Licensing people, do you want to?
No.
Everything okay? Conclude the meeting. Oh, you've just switched me back on, sorry. So I'm now going to conclude the meeting, and at the end of all of this meeting, the subcommittee are going to adjourn in private with the legal advisor and our clerk to deliberate. So all parties can now leave, and the decision will be conveyed to you in writing as explained earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Now in the live stream.